What's up, family? Thank you for tuning in to the DreamNation podcast. My name is Casanova. I'll be your host, and I'm excited to be bringing to you entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers from around the world. Stay locked in with us because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. What's up, Dream Nation? Today on the line, we have one of my brothers. Now, normally when I'm in the lab and I bring somebody in, I don't really know their story, so I'm connecting with them for the first time. But for this time, I'm so much more excited because I've seen this brother's journey. I've seen where he's come from and I've seen where he is today, and I'm so proud of him. So before we get into all of that of where he is today, of course, you all know that I love to start with the backstory just to let you know who is on the other side of the line, and today will be no different. So before becoming a multi-unit investor in real estate in 2 different states, before becoming a first generation, so many things that I already know is going to come out on this episode. But let's take it back to when you were just a young boy and tell me, who is wonderful Togbe?
Oh man. Well, first of all, let me say this. Casanova, thanks for having me on the show. It's really a big honor for me. We go back a little bit, and it's been quite the journey. So just getting into it, who was wonderful Togbe just coming up. I grew up in Togo in West Africa, just a French-speaking country on the west coast there. Grew up with my mom, and I was raised by her and my 2 sisters. And the biggest thing that, my mom wanted me to do was to just go to school and focus on that. And that was really how she saw my path of getting ahead out of a situation. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't, I never worried about, food or clothes and all that stuff, but I had one job, and it was to academics, focus on that. So pretty much that was my focus. And if I had good grades, I knew that one day when I was done with high school, I have the opportunity to come to the United States and continue my studies, which planned out ended up happening that way, which had moved over here back in 2008, and we can get into the other half of that story later.
Got it. I love it. So you came over. Obviously, you had to get good grades. You did that. Let's talk about when you were young, though. Did you find yourself always wanting to be some type of an entrepreneur or own your own business? Or what did that all look like for you? When did that mindset start to shift for you?
Yeah. So actually a little different. I don't think I ever really, dreamt about, oh, I want to own my own thing. And it has to do with, I guess, the environment. It was a lot more like, an entrepreneur back then was a little seen as someone who's, hustling. He's just trying to get it. Someone who's on his plan B because something else didn't work out. So that, and in the area that I grew up in, so it was really structured in a way that, hey, if you want to make it, you got to become a doctor, you got to become an engineer, lawyer. For my mom, really, it was just really doctor. That's the only thing that she wanted me to go for. So I never really, I wanted to be able to put the best, chances in my corner. And at that time, the only challenge I had was school, and I really just wanted to focus on that and do that. And I figured, well, once I was done with that, then everything else would take care of itself. There was a bit of reality check later on, but yeah, it was. I never really sold things in school like some people do here. All that stuff came later with the need of. But I always knew that I wanted to provide more than just myself. I knew that I had I was the only man in the house, and I knew that I had to be the one to get it all figured out and kind of pay back everybody.
Got it. I love it. And I love that you're true and transparent about that, right? Because the world of entrepreneurship has become so cool now, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody didn't really start out living that life. And some people, they were understanding that, hey, I don't know that I want to be somebody that's on my plan B is what it looks like. But what I do know is, just like you said, I want to provide, I want to have a family, I want to be able to give back, but I also want to be able to be a leader and be able to look forward. So I love that you said that. And for you, now let's kind of get into it, because I know what I want to talk about is a lot of how you overcame one of the biggest mindset obstacles in such a short amount of time. And what do I mean by this is the mindset that you were going to become an owner, you were going to become someone who is the Lord of your land. And for so many people, they reach out to me every single day. And I've been talking to certain people for 2 years now about them going to even buy their primary residence. But you, in a short amount of time, not only did you buy your primary residence, not only did you buy your first property, but now you bought multi-units as well. So let's get into that. And let's talk about the first time that you experienced real estate, and why did you know you wanted to be an investor or even an owner of any type of real estate?
Yeah, this that is a great question, and I love to get into this. So, so the plan, like I covered, was to go to school, have this all figured out, and moving from back home at 15 years old, and I didn't go back till about when I was 23, 22.
Okay.
So I actually more than that, I think it was, yeah, about that, about 7 years before I went back. And so that's 7 years of not seeing my sister. That's 7 years of, missing birthdays, all that stuff. I even lost some siblings in the meantime, and just being so focused on making something happen here. That really, that first time I went back home, I really had to start thinking about things a little differently. So when I moved back and sort of, well, I got this job that they said, right? I graduated as a software engineer. I got a pretty nice, paying job. I had enough to buy a new car. I had enough to, buy a house. But I saw that I wouldn't, if I continued on that rate, next time I'd be back home was like 5 years or another 7 years. Then I didn't really want to have to skip so much of my life. And I started thinking, well, how do I really, get this thing going? And as a software guy, it was Facebook and Instagram. All those apps were kind of coming out and well established. And I figured, well, maybe I should create an app. Why not? Uh, and I never really had any idea that I thought would take me uh, from going to my W-2 job to being a millionaire or billionaire in one day. So I just kept thinking, and you know, after meeting you, and seeing someone, and the day I met you I was at a tech conference, right? And we were giving a talk, and I was expecting to see, a bunch of other, I guess, quote unquote nerdy engineers doing their thing. And I saw on the agenda that there was a guy that wanted to talk about entrepreneurship in here, and I was, oh well, okay, well, let me see, maybe he's going to talk about apps, or like how do I get out there and make it happen that way. And lo and behold, I walked in and there was this gentleman, and very, charismatic. First of all, it was a brother. It was another black man that looked like me. And the entire talk, I was with a friend of mine. It wasn't about, writing code or anything like that. It was just about, taking it to the next level, entrepreneurship. Your story was shared there, kind of how kind of really uh, overcome certain aspects of your life, and that really touched me. And I got in touch with you, and I heard about real estate and the things that you were doing. Uh, you had a different story, but you made it happen. I figured, well, you know what, I was able to get a 4-year degree. I mean, I got some money coming in now. I should be able to get this thing. I should be able to do this. And even after that, I think after we met, it took me probably a good, 6, 7 months before I got back in touch with you. And in the meantime, I was doing a little more research, but I really needed someone to really, show me a little more of that. And, just fast forward, I got more details from you. We linked up. I signed up for the course that you were giving. And I had no other reason but to do this. And the reason why real estate in particular made so much sense to me, after going through some of the resources that friends like yourself had shared with me, is that, well, once I'm able to get a few of these things going, once I get a two or three of, let's say 10 of these things lined up, they're kicking off some rent every month. I'm taking care of I'm taking care of my mortgage. I have some extra money coming in. I can decide, you know what, rent's going to be paid. Everything's going to be good. I think I can go home for another 2 months, spend 2 months back home, 3 months. And now the usual 1 week or 10-day vacation that you get a year, right? So that was it for me. I said, well, you mean if I buy a few of these things, then I can go home and I can stay there for 6 months, right? And
Right.
come back whenever I want to. That was what changed it for me, and I had to do this. There's no doubt in my mind. I had a brand new car that I was driving then. I think I had gotten rid of that lease, changed some things around in my life, saved up some money, and yeah, bought my first deal.
Got it. I love it. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. First off, for anybody that's still, interested in what I think that he had to say on that, is he used his family to really motivate him to make a change, because the fact that his family was still back home, he was like, listen, with this W-2 job that I got, I'm not going to have enough money plus flexibility to continuously go back home if I want to for 30 days at a time, or even every 30 days if I wanted to go back home for a couple of days. So I love that. But then you took that leap of faith. So when you say you were doing research, talk about what type of research were you doing in that 6 to 7 months for you to be able to really start to understand real estate was this path for you.
To be honest with you, that time was really just getting cold feet, right? It was, I say research, but it was just really sitting on the sideline, and I had to see some more people that were doing this like yourself. I had to really, that's why, I do believe in. I'm so grateful for people that do like to share their journey, right? Because have I not been to that conference? Have you not been so candid and say, "Hey, this is what I did"? Others people doing that. Really, that was my research, sitting on the sideline, really, and well, getting curious, right, and following my curiosity. I had followed up with another, a sister that was also doing this, and I said, "Oh, well, I get it. That's this is all I need now." And I think I was at another conference, and she was telling me, "Hey, you know what? I think it was a wholesale deal that she had done here. A good friend of mine, Danielle, thanks for that." But she said, "Hey, I think I just closed on a deal, and something in the high five figures that she was getting that day." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay. Well, let me
And
hear
this was a
more about
wholesale
this."
deal that she did.
This was right, and I didn't
Got it.
go. I didn't go the wholesale route, but you know, and that was the second time. Then I had some book recommendations. I think I had to change my mindset first of all. So I had read Think and Grow Rich. I think I also got into uh, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Think and Grow Rich. To be honest, went over my head, but I knew a little bit of the things that they were talking about. I knew I had to make some more changes, so that's what I followed after that.
I love it. I love it. Talk to me about your first deal, because a lot of people, they want to know, how do they get their first deal? What was the way? What was your specific path to getting that first deal?
Yeah. So so I had purchased in the midst of trying to be more savvy with my money. I had purchased my own residency. That later on I found out that, well, it wasn't really something that would cash flow. So because I just bought something that looked nice enough, for me and my buddies to hang out with and not have to pay rent. So
Mm-hmm.
after speaking with you, I learned how to recognize numbers a little bit more, and I did the math. I knew I had to do a lot of the work myself. I couldn't just call you up every time and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Right? I had to do a lot of the homework myself, right? It wasn't like you were holding my hand the entire time, but being equipped with that knowledge, I knew how to recognize a good deal. I knew what I had in the bank, and contacted some agents. Say, "This is what I'm looking for. This is what I could take down. This is the part of town that's working out. Uh, that I think my money can get me somewhere." And I mean, if you want me to get into numbers, I'll do that.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear the numbers. So what did the first deal break down and look like?
Yeah. So first deal that came up, it was a house in not too far from University of Omaha. Very nice location. I think we got over there. It was listed as a 2-1, but way over 1,000 square foot.
Okay.
And that was a trigger for me that I learned later on that with that much square footage, there's probably an opportunity for a third room in there. So
Mm-hmm.
we kept that in mind, and we went over there to look at the property. I think I was working with the realtor that helped me with my primary residency, and I remember just going over there, and I believe it was listed for about I'm gonna say 80,000,
Okay.
something similar. But it looked a little. It wasn't that bad, but the fact that there was a den that was big enough to be a room, but for some reason, they were listing it as a 2-1. And I figured, well, you know what, this could be renters aren't gonna care that this is a den. They're gonna put a bed in there and make it into a bedroom. So even if I buy it, I'll be able to get 3-1 comps on it for as far as rent goes. And the other thing is, I pulled up Zillow and some of the other properties around it right next door. They were all in the 110 at least. So I figured, well, I think there's something here. There's
Right.
something here, and so we made an offer. I think we wanted to spoke with the realtor. We said, well, you know what, just I think I told him, excuse me, that my budget was about 60,000. I was like, I could only do about 15% down, I believe at the time. I had to piss all these things, once I actually secured the deal, but I knew I had to get something going.
Right.
I made the first offer, I believe, I said, oh, well, let's do 50. They laughed it off. They didn't come back with a counter. So I went back in there and they said, well, my realtor said, hey, let's do this. If you really want this, let's get it locked up, let's get it locked down, and you can negotiate if you find something else after that. If you find things that come up on the inspection. And I
Yeah.
believe we did that, and we counter with something that that was high enough for them to take. I believe I raised it all the way back to 70, I think, just to get this going. They had accepted it at 70. Then we were going through the inspection period. Then I had to say, well, come on, guys, I gotta, this roof here is looking a little, which it was at a time. I think the roof was quite old, and we had to just, I don't quite remember what all we had to make happen there. But lo and behold, I know that I signed on the data line at 57,000 for this house, knowing well that there are houses across the street going for 100,000 and up. So yeah, we did that, moved on with the appraisal, and at closing, it appraised for 85,000. So I was just closing I was already, on paper about 28,000 rich, which, richer than I was, which was,
Because you had instant equity in the property because
yeah,
of how you bought it.
yep,
And I
yep,
remember you calling me on that,
I did,
asking about it. And yeah, so when you're asking me like, hey, is this a good deal?
yeah,
Should I go through with this one? Because I already got it under contract,
yeah,
but like, should I be okay with taking this number? I
yeah.
remember that.
I did, yeah, I did, and and I needed some of that convincing at first. Right? We all need that, but at least I had taken the initial action to get that locked. So and yeah,
And how
uh,
much was that property cash flowing based off the fact that you got it for the 57, but it appraised out? How much was you able to rent that for, and what was your cash flow on it?
so I rented out for $1,000, and I believe my mortgage came out about 525. So with everything else, I think I was, cash flowing over 300, 350 on
Love it.
just that one unit. Yeah, and it got even better after that. I don't know if I'm gonna keep talking about this
Yeah,
one deal.
absolutely. We want to hear it. How did it get
Yeah.
better?
So I had, man, it was a little rough because I had some, I did have a couple of first tenant, first month, didn't want to pay rent, right? I got into a messy situation right away. But that sorted itself out. I had to deal with an eviction, but luckily I didn't follow
It's
through
all
with that.
coming back to me because
Took
I
off.
remember you were calling me on the.
Oh yeah, I
What
said
would
I called you because well, it was the end of the month, and she sent me a message, say, "Hey, I was asking for rent money." He said, "Well, I sent it on Zelle." And I was like, "Hey, Casanova, what do I do? I never got this money." And then I try to work with her. Hey, let's go to the bank. Can you call the bank, find out? Like, and then it became a nasty, situation. It just got bad, and I
Did
had
you wind
to.
up having to evict her, or did she eventually pay?
I gave her a notice and she took off. She took off. I got over there. The house was, I had a neighbor on the side, a little gentleman that, I would give him, like 20 here and there, say, hey, keep an eye on the house for me. So that ended up, helping me out because he called me one morning and said, hey, your tenants are leaving. And I think I was, I was getting ready for them, to leave, but I would think that they would at least try to, take care
Clean
of,
up the
clean
place.
up. Like I had a mess on my hand. Uh, back to that property, it was. I didn't. Not that I'm thinking about it. Before putting this thing on the market, I had plans that I was going to spend about, uh, tens of thousands of dollars just fixing up the driveway and things like that. That I never ended up doing that because I've spoken to other people that said, well, you don't need to, focus on what you need to be focusing on. Just a little parenthesis there. It cost me about $800 to get this thing rented, and another contractor that came to me through you, if you remember that. But back to that, yeah. So they had taken off, left me a big mess over there, and I thought to myself, well, I gotta really be strict on renting next time, right? I was not far for the hey, here's a cash, I'm ready to move in tomorrow kind of story. Do the due diligence. So I had done that. So the point I need to get to is I had done a refinance later
Okay.
on, so earlier this year, and property ended up appraising for 130,000.
Wow.
Uh, just another,
And
just
you
because
so
the
so for
property.
anybody that's circling back, you bought this property for $57,000. Once it was all said and done, you put about $800 into the property to try to get it all up and ready. You're renting it out. Are you still renting the property for $1,000?
Yeah, yeah,
Still renting the property out for $1,000. Now you've owned this property for what, a year and a half?
yep, something like that.
Year and a half. You're now that you've probably gotten it paid down. So what do you owe on the property now? Like 54, 50?
Well, I had refinanced, so my mortgage had gone up a little more than that. So I ended up pulling out just about 50,000 out of this property.
Got it. And now you
And
pulled
now,
out.
I'm still now my mortgage is about 700 on it. So I'm pretty much, I have, I mean, 100 extra there, but for me it was just money to get out so I could, get this thing going again. And not
Got it.
really, I still have my W-2 supplying me for day-to-day income. So I wasn't, too worried about cash flowing crazy. But I still had to make sure that I wasn't coming out of pocket to pay for mortgage though.
I love it. And with the 50,000, you then use that 50,000 to go buy another property?
I did, yeah. So with all the work that I've been putting in, right, I've gotten like an evangelist for real estate, investing at that point, right? And I really had to everybody that I would talk to, hey, you guys gotta get this thing, you gotta get in on this, right?
Right. Got to
And
buy some property.
yeah, I ended up buying a duplex in the meantime, and I recently bought a triplex.
Got it. So you
Yeah.
got a triplex. So now you own what, 6 units, 7 units?
7, yeah.
Own 7 units. So it started out in the beginning, you had no prior knowledge. You decided to take that leap of faith, take the chance on yourself, say, hey, this thing's got to work after you've seen other people, that's saying, hey, it really does work. You buy that first property. Because you bought right, you then were able to pull out the cash flow on it. You've had some problems right through there,
yeah.
which every investor does.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And now you own 7 units in a matter of less than 2 years.
Yes, sir. About a year and a half now.
Now, what do you bring in on your cash flow out of all of those 7 units per month?
So I literally just closed on the triplex here. It was fully rented out. So that's gonna bring me about. I gotta crunch the numbers on that. But I'm going to say, let's see. I think I'm coming in just a little under 1,000 now.
Okay,
just a little under 1,000.
Is it and that's for the triplex?
No, all of them.
For all of them together. So now you're bringing in 1,000, but that has nothing to do with your appreciation. That has nothing to do with the depreciation that you're able to do on the properties, and obviously offsetting your tax benefits.
Right.
So
that's after putting away money for insurance, for maintenance, for capital expenditures, and that all that good stuff.
Love it. So do you have anybody managing your properties?
So I have deployed a team now that I'm still managing this myself remotely. So I've gotten in touch with friends and family that helped me out, and I've kind of been showing them the ropes. And for what I do is, hey, if you need to check on this, so the fact that I stayed there for a year and a half before moving over here and purchasing another property that has allowed me. I had built a team over there in Omaha, and you speak so much about having a team ready. I'm really just a phone call away for calling someone to go in over there. And if I need to have someone else double check the work that contractor had done, then I can call up a buddy and say, hey, check this out. Like usually something on the outside. And usually if it's on the inside, I can ask my tenant to send me a picture to make sure that the work was done. So I'm managing remotely now.
Got it. So it's all about systems for you now.
Yeah.
It's all about setting up the right systems. Well, I love that. Talk to me about what has been the biggest challenge that you've seen in your first 2 years of being a real estate investor, because obviously you're winning now. You got these units over the course of the long term, 10 years from now, you're going to love every bit of it, as most real estate investors do, because of the appreciation and everything. But in your first 2 years, what was your big challenge? What was something that you wish you would have caught on to sooner?
There was some more just dealing with the balance between being a nice landlord and enforcing the lease, things like that. I had some people that try to take advantage. I guess it's the young face maybe that did that. So that was part of that, right? And another, I guess, being patient with deals. I look at a lot of them, being able to say no as well. Sometimes, you get you chasing after. You're in this game. I mean, this is, 7 is small numbers to a lot of people in this game. So you can get caught up trying to do big things, right? So, and getting yourself way in over your head. So just, being able to sometimes say, well, I guess I gotta let this one go. That's been another challenge, but for the most part, I've been very patient with the deals that I've done.
Got it. I love it. Has there been any major book or podcast or something like that outside of, well, I'm pretty sure I'll know one that you'll say, but outside of that one, and you can say it, what's been the biggest shift for you in understanding the real estate game at a faster rate than what most people do?
Yeah. So, well, I guess the bigger one, the number one podcast that you had referred me to back then that I've religiously listened to is the Bigger Pockets podcast, right? It's gotten to a point where I would go on. I remember back then I would go on road trips and make my friends listen to the podcast with me even though they wanted to bump to some music, right? I had a,
Right.
I couldn't waste any time. I said, all right, we're doing this, this 7-hour trip. I can knock out, 4 episodes of this thing. So we gotta, how to get them there. I listen to your podcast as well. You have a lot of real estate people that come in here, people who are just making things happen. I would say, as far as books go, just the common ones that everybody reads. I do lots of audio books. I've read a lot of mindset things, some negotiation.
But give us, so with that, we want to dive, you said the common books that everybody reads. Somebody listening to this right now, they're like, what are the common books that everybody reads?
Sure.
So give us one book.
Well, I talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. I've listened to and read Think and Grow Rich. I've done that 3 times already now.
Okay.
I've done another one that was really good is Never Split the Difference.
Yeah, Chris Voss.
For negotiation. There's a few more on there. I'll send those to you, but those are just the ones that come to mind that I've had to write down a few things through. And your book too.
Yeah. Shout out. That's a shameless plug. It's all. So the reason why I wanted to stress on this is because so many people, they're just thinking like, I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to not educate myself. I'm just going to go through the process. But it's so important to make sure that you can educate yourself because like you said in the beginning, it's about getting that confidence. Right. And the more knowledge that you have, the more confidence that you'll have. So listening to things, putting yourself in a state that when you're on road trips, right, you're making other people listen, but you're locking in as well, because eventually you're going to hear something that's going to spike a nerve in you that's going to say, listen, I got to get out here and I got to do this. Okay?
Exactly.
Otherwise, you'll always be sitting on the sideline and there's going to be deals that are bought and sold every single day forever.
Yep.
There's always a deal. It's about how do you solve the problem. Right. And so for you, I love it. And I love that how in the beginning, you reached out to me on so many things, whether it was about leases, right, and getting like a lease, or whether it was about tenants and everything. So having some type of a mentor, right, that you could just reach out to. But the best thing that I heard you say was like, listen, I knew that you weren't going to do it all for me. I had to go out there and I had to make some things happen. But once I already had it under contract, I'm like, hey, can you just take a look at this deal for me? For so many people, they want mentors, but they're not willing to go half the mile themselves, right? And then say, hey, look, I'm not turning back. I would love it if you would help me along this journey. But even if not, you could see that I'm already in.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And to the point of mentors, I've had a lot of people that, that I've proven to them that, hey, I'm serious about this by putting some skin in the game, just doing the homework necessary. Right. And which comes to, again, when I had spoken to you that day and you had this program that you were coming out with to teach real estate and investing, I just knew that I had to really invest in that, right? And not only to get the knowledge, but just a tip here: if you're trying to get some help with people that you look up to, try to bring some kind of value, right? It just so happened that the program that you had at the time, matched up perfectly with what I was trying to do. But even then, I think by wanting to get some mentorship from you, I think I would have still went ahead and invested in the product that you had, just because it makes you then it makes you vested in my success, right? If you're out there, you want someone that you invest in something and you bought their product, they're gonna want to pick up the call and help you when you're struggling with this, because, well, I mean, it's they want to see you. They just want to see you make it, right? At that point, they want to stand by their words as well and put in the effort. Right? There's been other people that had helped me on my journey here. I go to meetups. I have another good friend of mine, and I just wanted to find another way to provide value. I remember it was in a cold, snowy day. He was out of town, and he self manages a few of his properties here. He has some out of town as well, and he said, "Hey, wonderful. Who do you use for your snow? Who do you use to mow plow your snow?" And I said, "Oh, I do it myself." And he said, "Oh, all right. Well, I'll see if I can get someone else to do this." I said, "Oh no, you don't have to worry about that. I'll take care of you." right? And this was mind blowing to him. And at that point, I just know that I wasn't. I would have done that for anybody, just because I'm that kind of guy. But that had made him. I feel like that when you do stuff like that to people and not expecting anything in return, it makes them feel like, well, I gotta give you something back. And he's been along. He's helping with so many other deals that I had to put together, change locks, replace window screens, little things like that. Just the simple fact that I was able to help out a friend or a mentor, find a way to do that.
I love it, man. And off of that one small investment, not only the 50,000, but obviously, that I'm always a caller away, but you've been able to now create 7 doors off of that just by building your own confidence. And I always say, I can't take credit for any of that because that was all you. It's your investment. But I love to see that you took action on all of this. And for so many people, they get the information, but they don't even take action on it. So I'm proud of you. And I always tell everybody when they're talking about somebody who's young, who's started in real estate and who's taken off really quickly. I mean, you said that 7's not a large number, but it's better than 1, it's better than 2, it's better than 6, and you've done it in a short amount of time. So I'm proud of you, man.
Appreciate it.
The one last thing that I want to say is there's somebody out there that's listening to this and, they hear your story, they're inspired by it, they're first generation, but maybe they're thinking that they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough, or maybe they just don't have enough resources. What's the one thing that you say to that person to just get them to just take action?
For me, right, it's when you really think about it, and I'm just going to put it this way, is, I might have heard this from someone else, probably Gary Vee, another great guy that I love listening to. But, it's just a simple thought that you're going to die one day, right? I'm just going to put it that way, and it's a combination of that. And he says this thing is, don't you want to be happy? And really for me, when you start and taking ownership, right? So when you answer, don't you want to be happy? And you say yes. And then you answer, well, whose fault is it that I'm not? All right. What can I do? And the finger comes back at you, right? Once those two things are lined up, I don't know how you can't not take action, right? Once you have one life to live, I know that I've lost some friends and family, just having those things in the back of my mind, knowing that, hey, it's a blessing to be alive, and I have enough to make it happen, and I have people counting on me. Just if you won't do it for yourself, if the answer to don't you want to be happy is yes, I'm happy for myself, well then maybe how about the people around you, right? So that was the biggest thing for me, my mom and sisters, and some extended family, and even more than that, right? Because if you take care of your family, then you're just doing what you're supposed to do, right? You got to be able to help out way more than that. But once you start there, and you have those things you ask yourself those questions on a regular basis, you just got to take action, man.
I love it, man. I love it. But it's been a phenomenal episode, and we're so proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm sure there's someone out there that's listening that will reach out and tell you how proud they are of you. And I know that your family's proud of you. We appreciate you coming out to the show, and just remember, DreamNation, at the end of the day, in the dream we trust. But just as my man Wonderful said, we must take action. Otherwise, it'll only merely be a fantasy. So until the next time, we look forward to having you back again. And then I'm sure you'll be at 25 units and you'll be educating what's the fastest way to scale up. But keep doing what you're doing, my brother, and we appreciate you coming on.
That's the episode for today. Let me know if you got any value out of this, if you liked anything about it. Reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter, any of the social media networks, and of course, leave me a review, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you're hearing this at. I would love to have a review to show, what you're getting out of this. Is there anything that I could do better? Is there any way that I can add more value to you? So hopefully you all take some action today. That's my show. I love you all. Be great. But remember, we must take action.